Suburban afternoon light falls golden across a quiet residential street, the kind of place people move to for safety. Manicured lawns line the avenue, perfect rectangles of grass, nothing out of order. White fences mark property lines like promises. Then the sound cuts through. A police siren, single tone cutting the silence like a blade through silk. Power has a funny way of blinding those who wield it. It wraps around the mind, distorts perception, convinces the holder that their version of reality is the only one that matters. Today, one officer would discover exactly how blind he'd become. The cruiser turns onto Elm Street, lights flashing in rhythmic bursts, red and blue painting the peaceful afternoon in colors that don't belong. This is the story of what happens when a woman does everything right, follows every rule, shows every respect, and finds that none of it matters. Not because she's alone, but because she's married to the only person in the system with the power to tear it open. Renee Caldwell is 41 years old. Her posture and the careful way she moves make her seem both younger and older simultaneously. She's black professional and accountant by training. The kind of person who deals in numbers, facts, things that cannot be disputed. She wears her competence like armor. Her car today is a silver Lexus, well-maintained, practical. She's driving on Elm Street because it's the fastest route from her office downtown to Jefferson Elementary School. Her daughter Jada waits in the after-school care program. The route takes her through the kind of neighborhood where property values are reassuringly stable, where houses have security systems and homeowner associations, where things theoretically are under control. Renee's hands rest on the wheel at 10 and 2, exactly where they should be. The radio is playing NPR, something about economic indicators. She's thinking about the grocery list she needs to make later, about whether she has time to pick up fresh salmon for dinner, about the school board meeting next week where she's planning to volunteer. These are the thoughts of a woman living a normal life, a woman who believes in systems, who trusts institutions, who thinks that if you follow the rules will protect you. In the back seat, barely visible through the tinted windows, sits Jada. She's 8 years old. She's doing her homework. 3rd grade math, simple addition and subtraction problems that she keeps getting wrong because she can't quite focus. Renee is adjusting the radio dial, looking for a different station. Her hand drifts from the wheel for just a moment. Her car drifts very slightly between lanes, the kind of drift that happens 1,000 times a day on every road in America. The kind of thing no one notices unless they're looking for a reason to stop you. Someone is looking. 3 miles away, cruising down the commercial strip between the office parks and the strip malls, sits Officer Randall Brooks. The weight of his expectations presses down on his shoulders like a physical thing. Brooks is 34 years old. He has 6 years on the force. 6 years to develop certain habits of thinking. His face carries the kind of permanent tension that comes from living in a state of low-level anger. His jaw is clenched even when he's not speaking. His shoulders are bunched up around his ears. He grips the steering wheel of his patrol car with white knuckles. His mirrored sunglasses reflect the passing storefronts without really seeing them. To Officer Randall Brooks, a police uniform is not a symbol of public service. It is a permission slip. It is a document that says his worst impulses are justified by authority. The uniform protects him in the way that other people are never protected. It shields him from consequences. It transforms his prejudices into policy. Beside him sits Officer Marcus Chen, 24 years old, fresh out of the academy barely 9 months ago. Marcus is still idealistic. He still believes that policing is primarily about helping people, about standing between the innocent and the dangerous, about being the good guy in a story with clear moral lines. Marcus is currently very uncomfortable. You see Chen Brooks is saying, his voice a gravelly rasp. It's about establishing baseline expectations. These people come into our town. They think they can just loiter, bring down property values, act like they own the place. You give them an inch, they take a mile. You have to show them who holds the leash. Marcus stares out the window at the passing cars. His training officer has been ranting for the past 20 minutes about shifting demographics in the neighborhood, about property values and the element, about how things have changed, about who belongs and who doesn't. "Who exactly do you mean?" Sir Marcus asks carefully. His voice carries the tremor of someone who already knows the answer, but is hoping desperately that he's misunderstanding. Brooks lets out a short, sharp bark of laughter. It has no humor in it. "Don't play dumb, kid. You know exactly what I'm talking about. The ones who don't belong here. The ones who don't respect the law until you make them respect it." Marcus doesn't respond. He has learned in his short time with Brooks that responding is often worse than silence. Brooks accelerates the cruiser past the speed limit, just because he can, just to feel the small power of it. Just watch and learn Chen. Today you're going to see how real police work gets done. No more of that textbook garbage they fed you at the academy. Marcus continues staring out the window. He is in this moment regretting every decision that led him here. He is wondering if there's a way to transfer. He is calculating how many more weeks he has left before he can request a different training officer. But he says nothing. Back on Elm Street, Renee Caldwell adjusts the radio dial. Her eyes flicker from the road to the station selector and back. It's less than a second. A completely normal action. The kind of thing drivers do millions of times per day. Her car drifts, just slightly, from the center of her lane toward the line, then back. A moment later, she's returned to her proper position. The radio is now tuned to a different station, a news program about local politics. She settles back into her seat. She does not know that Officer Randall Brooks has just turned onto her street. The first indication is the flashing lights in her mirror, blue and red appearing suddenly in the afternoon sun. Renee's stomach drops before her mind catches up. What did she do? She was following the speed limit. She checked both mirrors before changing lanes. She was driving carefully with intention. She pulls over, smoothly, carefully. She signals, slowing gradually, finding a safe spot beneath a mature oak tree. She puts the car in park. She turns off the engine. She places both hands on the steering wheel where they can be easily seen. "It's okay, Jada," she says, her voice calm in the way that mothers can be calm, even when their hearts are racing. "Mommy did something wrong. I don't know what yet, but everything is going to be fine. Stay calm, stay quiet. Let Mommy talk to the officer, and remember we did nothing wrong, so we don't need to be afraid." Jada, 8 years old, nods. She sits very still in her car seat, already absorbing lessons that her mother is without meaning to teaching her about the world. Renee watches in the mirror as the officer approaches. She notes the aggressive stride, the wide-legged walk of someone coming for dominance. She notes the hand resting on the butt of his service weapon, not necessarily touching it, just resting there, close enough that the message is clear. She knows in that moment that this is not about a minor traffic violation. She knows it by the energy of his approach, by the straightness of his spine, by the angle of his chin. She has been married to Chief Caldwell Byron for 14 years. She knows what authority looks like. She knows what the performance of authority looks like. And she knows with a sick certainty the difference between someone here to keep the peace and someone here to assert power. Officer Brooks leans down to the window. He hasn't knocked. He hasn't introduced himself. He simply appears at the glass, large and looming, makes a rotating gesture with his finger. Renee rolls down the window. "License and registration," Brooks says. Not a greeting, not even a question. A command delivered with the confidence of someone who knows no one will refuse him. "Of course, officer," Renee says. Her voice is calm, professional, the voice of someone who has done this before, or who has at least prepared herself for it. "Can I ask what I've done?" "License and registration." Brooks repeats, his tone hardening. He does not answer her question. Renee reaches for the glove compartment. Her movements are slow, deliberate. She is hyper-aware that sudden movements can be misinterpreted. She is hyper-aware of the young officer in the passenger seat watching. She is hyper-aware of her daughter in the back seat watching. She is hyper-aware in a way that white people almost never have to be, that her body is being evaluated for threat. She hands the documents to Brooks. License, registration, proof of insurance. Brooks takes them. He does not return to his car like normal procedure dictates. Instead, he stands at her window, reading, slowly, taking his time, looking at the photo on her license, then at her face. Back to the photo. Back to her face. "This vehicle registered to you?" he asks. "Yes," Renee says. "You the only driver. My husband uses it sometimes, but..." "Insurance, current." "Yes, officer." Brooks hands back the documents. The entire interaction has taken 4 minutes. He still hasn't explained why he stopped her. "I'm gonna need you to step out of the vehicle," he says. Renee's stomach tightens. Jada in the back seat makes a small sound. "Officer, if I may ask, step out of the vehicle." Renee unbuckles her seatbelt. She takes a breath. She opens the door. She steps out into the afternoon sunlight, leaving the air conditioning of the car behind. Already the heat is a presence against her skin. Sweat begins to form on her temples. "Stay right there," Brooks says, pointing to a spot on the asphalt. Not in front of the vehicle, not in a safe location. In a spot where, should another car come around the corner, she would be visible, but not fully protected. She stays right there. Marcus Chen, watching from the passenger seat, shifts uncomfortably. Something about this stop does not feel right to him. The woman complied immediately. She was respectful. She hasn't done anything that warrants an extraction from the vehicle. But he says nothing. He is, after all, the rookie. This is his training. "Lane violation," Brooks says, returning his attention to Renee. "You drifted between lanes. Unsafe." Renee nods. She considers offering an explanation. She was adjusting the radio, yes, but it was momentary and she corrected it immediately. But something in the set of Brooks's shoulders tells her that explanations will not be welcome. "I apologize, officer," she says instead. "I'll be more careful. Something you want to tell me about this vehicle?" Brooks continues, ignoring her apology. "Looks like something might be going on here." "I don't understand, officer." "What do you mean, well?" Brooks says, and his voice takes on a different quality now. A quality that suggests he's preparing to construct a narrative. "For one thing, this registration. It seems, a little questionable. Might be fraudulent." "The registration is not fraudulent. It is completely legitimate." Renee knows this. She processed it herself, but she also knows that pointing this out directly will be seen as arguing with the officer. Arguing with the officer is by definition non-compliance. "I assure you it's valid," she says carefully. "My husband and I handle..." "You seem awfully familiar with these procedures," Brooks interrupts. "You've been stopped before." The question is designed to be a trap. If she says yes, it suggests a pattern of driving unsafely. If she says no, the implication is that she's been coached on her rights. Either way, it becomes evidence of wrongdoing. "No, officer, but I do know that." "Look, Ms. Caldwell," he says, reading her name from the license. "I think I'm going to need to take a look inside this vehicle. For safety reasons." "Officer, I don't consent to a search. I haven't done. I said for safety reasons. Now you can do this the easy way or the hard way." Marcus Chen, still in the cruiser, closes his eyes. He has seen this happen before. He has been with Brooks for 9 months. In those 9 months, he has seen variations of this play out at least a dozen times. The woman complies because she has to. She has no power here. The officer claims to smell marijuana or to see something suspicious, or to have some safety concern. The search happens anyway. Nothing illegal is found. But the woman has been violated. Her private space has been invaded. She has been treated like a criminal for driving while black. And there is nothing that can be done about it. Renee steps aside. Brooks opens her car door. He leans in, ostensibly looking for something dangerous. What he's actually doing is asserting dominance. What he's actually doing is demonstrating that her space is not her own, that her property is not secure, that her body and her car and her safety are all subject to his whims. He rifles through the glove compartment. He looks under the seats. He leans back and examines the upholstery. He reaches toward the back seat. Officer Jada's small voice says from the back seat, "Why are you looking in our car?" Renee's jaw tightens. She wants to shield her daughter from this. She wants to explain it away. She wants to make it seem normal. "It's okay, baby," she says instead. The officer is just doing his job. But Jada is looking at her mother with the beginning of fear in her eyes. The kind of fear that plants itself early and grows throughout childhood. The kind of fear that teaches you that authority is not there to protect you. Brooks spends another 15 minutes examining the car, slowly, deliberately, taking his time. He produces a small flashlight, shines it under the seats into the cup holders along the door panels. He checks the trunk. He verifies that the spare tire is there. He examines the emergency kit. Nothing. Of course nothing. There is nothing illegal in the car because Renee Caldwell does not drive with contraband. She is a professional. She is careful. She is exactly the kind of person who plays by the rules, and the rules are failing her. When Brooks finally finishes, when he's satisfied that he's demonstrated his authority adequately, he calls for backup. "Dispatch. I need another unit at Elm and 4th Avenue, he says into his radio. For officer safety, suspicious vehicle, possible fraudulent documentation, the possibilities of danger that he's constructing out of thin air materialize into consequence through his words. A woman adjusting her radio dial. Completely legal documentation. A routine traffic stop. The radio crackles. Another voice responds. Unit 47 responding. Within 2 minutes, another patrol car arrives. Officer Kyle Martinez steps out. He's 36, a veteran of 8 years on the force. He's worked with Brooks long enough to know how this goes. They exchange a look, a brief moment of understanding that passes between them without words. Marcus Chen watches all of this from the passenger seat, and he feels something curdle in his chest. This is not what he signed up for. This is not protection. This is not justice. This is something else entirely, and he is being trained to participate in it. Ms. Caldwell Martinez says, approaching her. His tone carries false friendliness that is almost worse than Brooks's aggression. "Do you mind if I ask you a few questions?" "I don't think I should answer more questions," Renee says, without understanding what I'm being stopped for, and her voice is steady, but her hands are shaking slightly. "I know my rights." The moment she says, "I know my rights," something shifts in the dynamic. Knowing your rights is interpreted as defiance. Knowing your rights is interpreted as having something to hide. "You know your rights," Brooks repeats, his voice dripping with implication. "Interesting that you'd bring that up. Makes me wonder what you're hiding." "I'm not hiding anything. I'm simply, you're being very difficult," Martinez says, his tone still friendly but with steel underneath. "All we want is to help you. Cooperate, and this will be over quickly. But Renee knows. And they know. And Marcus Chen knows. That cooperation is never enough. There is a predetermined outcome here. Her behavior, compliant or resistant, is simply scenery." The conclusion was drawn the moment she pulled over. "I understand," Renee says. She stops talking, Silence. She has decided is her safest option now. We're going to conduct a more thorough search of your vehicle, Martinez says, for everyone's safety. The search is far more invasive this time. Martinez goes through her console. He finds a bottle of ibuprofen, examines it like it's evidence of drug use. He looks at receipts. He finds a flask of water and holds it up to the light. He goes through her registration again, looking, it seems, for something, anything, that might justify this stop retroactively. Jada is crying quietly in the back seat now. She's trying to hold it in. The way children do when they sense their fear is an inconvenience. Renee can see her daughter's face in her peripheral vision. It breaks something inside her that this is happening, that she's teaching her daughter without meaning to that the world is not safe, that authority is not trustworthy, that doing everything right is not enough. 25 minutes have passed since the police car first pulled up behind her. 3 citations are written up. Brooks returns to his patrol car. He spends 20 minutes in his seat typing, entering information into the system, building a record, creating a paper trail that will remain a permanent notation against Renee's name, no matter how it's ultimately resolved. The first citation is for unsafe lane change. The second is for suspicious registration documents. The third is for window tint exceeding legal limits. The windows are tinted at 48% opacity. The legal limit is 35%. Renee's car is tinted 3% darker than the law allows. This is the kind of violation that gives police a reason to stop a car whenever they want, because it's so trivial and so common that almost no one bothers to correct it. "You're free to go," Brooks says finally, handing Renee the citations through her open window. His tone suggests that he's doing her a favor. His tone suggests that she should be grateful. But I'd suggest you be more careful in my town. The phrase hangs in the air between them. My town. Not our town. Not this city. My town. As if the geography has been conquered. As if it's been claimed. As if the rules that apply to everyone else are subject to his interpretation and enforcement. Renee takes the citations. She doesn't read them. She knows what they say. She knows that the total fines will be somewhere around $850. She knows that contesting them will mean taking time off work. She knows that even if she wins, even if the citations are dismissed, the record will still exist. "Can I go?" She asks, her voice small in a way she hates. "Yeah, you can go." Renee gets back in her car. She starts the engine. She pulls back onto Elm Street. With careful attention to her lane position, to her speed, to every single thing she's doing. She is hyper-aware now. She is performing normalcy. She is driving like someone being observed. Because she is. In her mirror, she watches the 2 police cars as she drives away. They don't follow. They've accomplished their goal. The stop is over. But it's not over for Renee. It won't be over for a long time. The drive to Jefferson Elementary takes another 10 minutes. Renee parks in the pickup line. She waits for Jada to come out from the after-school care program. When Jada sees her mother's car, she runs. She always runs. But today there's something different in her speed, in the way she throws herself into the back seat. "Hi, baby Renee," says her voice, carefully bright. "How was school?" "We did math," Jada says, but her voice is small. She's not talking about school. She's asking a question without quite asking it. "That's good. Were you good?" "Mommy, why was the police officer angry at us?" Renee's hands grip the steering wheel. She wants to lie. She wants to say that the officer wasn't angry. She wants to say that everything was fine. She wants to protect her daughter from knowledge that authority is not fair, that systems are not just, that being good and following rules might not be enough to keep you safe. But Jada is 8 years old. She has just witnessed evidence. evidence that contradicts everything her parents have taught her about the world. The officer wasn't angry at us, sweetheart, Renee says carefully. Sometimes adults have bad days. Sometimes people make mistakes. It's not true. They both know it. But it's what adults say when they're trying to hold the world together for their children. The drive home is quiet. Jada looks out the window. She's processing. She's beginning, Renee realizes with grief, to understand something about the way the world works. Something that should take years to learn. Something that should be taught gradually. Is being learned now. In an afternoon. Through lived experience. Chief Caldwell Byron is already home when they arrive. He's working from home today, having taken the afternoon off for a conference call. He's sitting in his home office. But he comes downstairs when he hears the front door open. He sees something in Renee's face immediately. What happened? He asks. Renee sets down her purse. She looks at Jada, who's disappeared into the living room, then back at her husband. I got stopped on Elm Street, she says quietly. Brooks. The name lands like a stone. Caldwell's entire body changes. His shoulders tense. His jaw clenches. He steps closer to Renee, his eyes searching her face for injury, for damage, for anything visible that might indicate what happened. Are you okay? Is Jada okay? We're fine. He didn't. We're fine. But he was aggressive. Searched the car, made me stand outside, drew back up, and he wrote me citations for things that barely. She stops. She's trying to control her voice, trying not to cry, trying to be strong because that's what you do when you're the spouse of the police chief. You don't fall apart. You don't cry about something that in the grand scheme of things is relatively minor. No one was hurt. No one was arrested. No one was charged with anything serious. But her daughter saw it, and that makes it serious in a way that's difficult to articulate. Show me the citations, Caldwell says. And his voice has shifted into something entirely different. It's the voice of the police chief now. The voice of someone who has authority and who is about to use it. Renee hands them over. Caldwell reads them carefully. His face darkens with each word. Unsafe lane change, suspicious registration, window tint. He looks up at Renee. What was the actual reason for the stop lane change? I adjusted the radio and drifted slightly. It was momentary, and Brooks called back up for a lane change. He said it was for officer safety. Caldwell sits down. He opens his laptop. His fingers move across the keyboard with authority, accessing information that he has access to because he's the police chief. Files, records, documentation. I've been building a case on Brooks for months, he says, quietly. Not looking at her. I haven't told you because I didn't want to involve you, but I have 14 separate complaints against him, 9 of them from women who look like you. I have documentation of stops. I have patterns that I've been trying to connect. Renee sits down across from him. She watches her husband's face as he pulls up file after file. 63 stops, he continues almost to himself, over the past 24 months. 89% of them Black or Latina women. I've been trying to figure out why these stops are all concentrated on the same neighborhoods. Why he's calling for backup so frequently. Why the tow company Metro Towing gets called to almost every one of these stops. He turns the laptop toward Renee. She sees the spreadsheets, the databases, the meticulous documentation of something that piece by piece tells a story about more than just one officer's prejudice. There's something bigger here, Caldwell says. I can feel it, but I don't have the proof yet. I need to understand the connection. Why would Brooks be targeting these specific areas? Why would backup be called so frequently? Why the towing company Renee watches her husband work? She sees the moment when he realizes that she's now part of this, that she's no longer just someone concerned about the police department's practices in the abstract. She's a victim, she's data, she's proof. We're going to find out, Caldwell says, turning back to her. And we're going to do something about it. The next morning, Caldwell sits across from Detective Sarah Wright in his office. The door is closed. Wright has been with the department for 12 years. She's methodical. She's thorough. She's also, crucially, one of the few people in the department who understands that Caldwell is genuinely trying to reform the department. Not just manage optics. I need you to dig deeper, Caldwell says, sliding the folder across his desk toward her. This Officer Brooks. These stops. These connections to Metro Towing. I want to know everything. Wright opens the folder. She reads. Her expression doesn't change, but Caldwell can see the moment something clicks for her. Something that she's suspected but hasn't been able to prove. Rico, she asks. I don't know yet, Caldwell says, but I want to know. Wright works through the night. She pulls records. She constructs timelines. She maps patterns. By the morning, she has something. She returns to Caldwell's office with 3 more folders. Okay, she says, and her voice carries the weight of what she's discovered. Here's what I have. Brooks has 14 excessive force complaints in 6 years. 9 of them involved minority women. All of them were either dismissed or settled quietly by the union. The union notably has been very effective at protecting him. Caldwell nods. He knew this part already. But here's what's interesting. Wright continues. Every single one of these stops that ends in a citation also results in a tow. Metro Towing specifically. Same company every time. I checked with the city's finance department. Metro Towing holds a city contract. It's supposed to be for abandoned vehicles and parking violations, but the numbers aren't matching up. She opens the second folder. Financial records, city contracts, payments. Over 3 years, Metro Towing has been paid $680,000 by the city. Most of those calls are being placed by Brooks's unit. Now, Metro Towing as a company has significant financial connections. The owner, Craig Thompson, has been operating in this city for 15 years. But get this, he doesn't just have the city contract. He also has a very specific relationship with one of our officers. She points to a document, a bank record, deposits into Brooks's account. Regular, consistent, slightly disguised through a shell company, but clearly connected. Brooks has received $52,000 from Metro Towing over the past 2 years, Wright says flatly, either directly or through intermediaries. And he's not the only one. Martinez has $31,000. 3 other officers have smaller amounts, but they all connect to the same company. They all connect to the same pattern of stops. Caldwell feels something settle in his chest. It's not surprise exactly. He suspected this, but suspicion and proof are different things. Who else is involved? He asks. Wright opens the third folder. Memos. Official department communications. Internal emails. Captain Victor Lang, she says. He's the one orchestrating the pressure. I have memos where he's literally setting quotas. Minimum 6 stops per week. Minimum 2 tows per month. He's directing enforcement towards specific neighborhoods. The Southern Corridor, the East End. He explicitly states in one memo that residents in these areas have lower legal pushback, which is a nice way of saying that these neighborhoods are disproportionately populated by people of color, people who don't have the resources to contest citations. She points to a specific line in one of the memos. A line that when read aloud strips away all plausible deniability. Odor of marijuana remains sufficient probable cause under state law. Use your judgment. Caldwell reads. That's the mechanism. That's how he's giving them permission to stop people with impunity. Because marijuana odor is subjective. Because it can't be disproved in the moment. Exactly, Wright says. And that's the genius of it in a terrible way. He's created a system where the officers can always claim they smelled something. can always justify the stop, can always claim it's legitimate when in fact it's orchestrated. Caldwell stands up. He walks to his window. He looks out at the police department building, at his department, at the institution he's been trying to lead with integrity. "How deep does this go?" he asks quietly. "I'm not sure yet," Wright says. "But I'm getting phone records. I'm looking at more financial connections." And Caldwell. She waits until he turns back to her. "Your wife wasn't the first woman stopped by Brooks, but she might be the one we can actually use to bring this down." Caldwell nods slowly. He understands what she's saying. His wife's stop his position, his willingness to investigate. These are the things that can transform a series of complaints. Complaints that have been dismissed into actual leverage. These are the things that might finally make someone listen. "Keep digging," he says. "And Wright, be careful with it. This goes high. If Lang's involved, that means everyone above him might be complicit." Wright nods. She understands the danger. She understands that investigating this case could cost her career, could cost all of them their careers. But she's a detective because she believes that evidence matters, that truth matters, that patterns of abuse once revealed can be addressed. She's about to learn how difficult it is to believe in those things. Inside an institution designed to protect those committing the abuse. Over the next 2 weeks, Wright works through the records. She conducts forensic analysis of the department's communication systems. She finds text messages between Brooks and Martinez. She finds emails. She finds a paper trail that, while carefully constructed, still shows enough of the outline to understand the full shape of what's happening. One text message, dated 3 weeks before Renee's stop, reads simply, "Lang wants 12 stops this week. Midlothian is easy pickings. Soccer moms don't lawyer up." Another, dated more recently, "New chief is a problem. Asking too many questions. Lang says, keep our heads down. These aren't coded messages. These aren't deniable. These are evidence of conspiracy, of intention, of knowing exactly what's being done and doing it anyway." Wright presents her findings to Caldwell in a secure conference room in the basement of the police building. No windows, no possibility of surveillance from outside, just the two of them, and folders full of evidence that could dismantle everything. "Captain Lang's brother owns the storage lot," Wright says, pulling out financial records. "Metro Towing uses that lot exclusively. Pays $120,000 in rent over 3 years. Pays it to a storage company owned by Lang's family. The money goes up the chain. It's a perfect system. The tow company gets contracts. They pay the storage company for the facility. The storage company pays Lang's family. Lang creates the pressure that forces the stops. The officers get their cut in more subtle ways. And everyone profits except the women being targeted." Rico Caldwell says again. "That's what this is." Absolutely Wright confirms. "It's organized crime with badges." Caldwell stands up. He walks around the small table processing. This is bigger than he thought. This involves his supervisor. This involves multiple officers. This involves the union. This is a conspiracy that reaches into the very structure of the police department he leads. "We need to go federal," he says finally. "We can't handle this internally. The union will protect them. Administration will bury it. We need the FBI." Wright nods. She's been thinking the same thing, but saying it aloud makes it real. Once they make that call, once they contact federal law enforcement, there's no taking it back. Their careers as they know them are finished. The union will turn on them. Their colleagues will distance themselves. They will become, in the eyes of the police culture, the worst thing you can be. A snitch. "I'll do it," Caldwell says. "Tonight. You compile everything. Make sure it's airtight. And right. If anyone asks, you don't know anything about this conversation. Too late for that, Wright says, but she's already gathering the files. We're in this together now. That night, Chief Caldwell Byron sits in his home office. He composes an email to the FBI field office. He's careful with his words. He's precise. He's thorough. He explains the pattern. He outlines the evidence. He provides documentation that, while damning, is presented with the professional distance of a law enforcement officer, reporting on possible violations. He hits send, and he feels the moment physically when his life divides, before and after. By 8 the next morning, the FBI has called him. By noon, they have a preliminary meeting scheduled. By evening, the case is being expedited. By the next morning, the Washington Post has the story. Virginia Police Department accused of quota-based towing scheme targeting minority neighborhoods. The article is detailed. It names names. It shows the financial connections. It includes quotes from victims. It references the memos. It describes the text messages. It lays out in accessible language for the general public exactly how the system has been designed to target Black and Latina women. Captain Lang sees the article before anyone else. He reads it in his office at 6 in the morning, and his world ends. By 7, he's called his attorney. By 8, his attorney is calling the police union. By 9, he's submitted his resignation. Officer Brooks's attorney calls him as soon as the story breaks. Don't talk to anyone. Don't text anyone. Don't email anyone. They're building a federal case. This is serious. Brooks, sitting in his home, suddenly understanding that he's been exposed, feels something that might be shock. He's been careful. He's covered his tracks. But the evidence is there, and it's undeniable. By 3 in the afternoon, 3 officers are placed on administrative leave, pending investigation. By 5, the Department of Justice announces a preliminary federal inquiry. By 7, Metro Towing loses its city contract. By 9, the union issues a statement, defending its officers while carefully distancing itself from leadership. The system designed to protect itself begins to fracture. Renee sits with Detective Wright in an interview room at the police station recording a full statement. It takes 6 hours. She walks through every moment of the stop, the way Brooks approached, the tone of his voice, the way he touched her car, the way he searched it, the way he looked at Jada, the way he constructed narratives out of nothing, the way he used his authority to assert power. It's exhausting. It's humiliating. It's necessary. When she's finished, Wright shakes her hand. This is going to matter, she says. And Renee wants to believe her. She wants to believe that her testimony, her experience will mean something, will change something. Once the story breaks, other women come forward. Some have filed complaints before and been ignored. Some never filed complaints because they didn't think it would matter. Some have been stopped multiple times. Some have children who now fear police. There's Marissa Williams, a teacher, stopped by Brooks while driving home from work. She was asked to prove she wasn't intoxicated by reciting the alphabet backwards. She complied. She was, of course, not intoxicated, but she was humiliated. There's LaToya Johnson, a nurse, stopped and detained for 3 hours, while Brooks allegedly searched for evidence of a crime he never clearly articulated. She missed her son's 7th birthday party. While in detention, she was never charged with anything. There's Kendra Anderson, who holds a master's degree, works as a project manager. She was subjected to the same sobriety test, despite giving no indication of impairment. The citation was later dismissed in court, but not before the damage was done. 26 women in total, 26 separate instances of being targeted, 26 separate violations of dignity, 26 separate moments that taught them something about the way the system actually works, as opposed to how it's supposed to work. 7 days after the story breaks, the Richmond City Council announces a public hearing. All 9 council members will be present. Evidence will be presented. Victims can testify. A vote will determine Brooks's employment status and the department's policy going forward. The media interest is enormous. Local news, national news beginning to pick it up. This is the story of a city confronting institutional corruption, and the narrative is too good to ignore. Renee watches the announcement from her home, sitting on her couch with Caldwell beside her. She feels the weight of what's about to happen. She feels the knowledge that she's about to stand in front of cameras and talk about one of the worst moments of her life. She feels the understanding that this will be permanent, that video will exist forever, that people will know. But she also feels something else. She feels the possibility that maybe, just maybe, this could matter, that her stop and the 25 other stops could finally be treated as what they are: evidence of institutional abuse. Renee can't sleep. She lies in bed next to Caldwell, both of them awake in the darkness, not talking, just existing in the space between what was and what will be. Downstairs, Jada sleeps in her room, her nightlight casting soft shadows on the wall. Renee thinks about her daughter. She thinks about what she's teaching Jada by testifying. That speaking truth matters. That standing up for yourself matters. That refusing to accept injustice matters, even when it's hard. At 3 a.m, Renee gets out of bed. She goes into Jada's room. She sits on the edge of her daughter's bed. She watches Jada sleep. She thinks about the future. She thinks about what the next day will bring. Caldwell finds her there. He sits beside her. He doesn't say anything. What is there to say? They're both about to walk into a hearing. That will expose in public what happened to them. They're both about to participate in a system, trying finally to hold itself accountable. The Richmond City Hall Council chambers are packed at 7 p.m. 53 people, 6 cameras from various news outlets, all 9 city council members. The gallery is divided roughly between media and community members. Some of those community members are the victims themselves. Some are family members. Some are just citizens who want to see something happen. Council member Lisa Taylor gavels to order. She's the council chair. She's been briefed on everything. She knows what the evidence shows. She knows what's at stake. "We're here tonight," she says, her voice carrying through the chamber, "to address serious allegations of abuse of authority, civil rights violations, and institutional corruption. We will hear evidence. We will hear from victims, and we will determine what actions this council will take in response." Chief Caldwell Byron stands. His uniform is pressed. His bearing is formal. But there's something else in his posture. Something that suggests he's about to sever himself from the institution he's led by speaking the full truth about what it's become. He presents the case systematically. He walks through the timeline. He references each incident. He lays out the statistical evidence. He explains the financial connections. He reads the memo verbatim. On the day in question, he says, referring to Renee's stop, Officer Brooks conducted a stop without reasonable suspicion. He demanded a search without probable cause. He used physical contact without justification. He called backup under false pretenses. All of this is documented on body camera, civilian recordings, and my witness testimony. He pauses. The chamber is silent. This is not an isolated incident. He continues. This is a 6-year pattern. This is institutional. This is systemic. And if we do not address it, if we do not hold ourselves accountable, then we are complicit in the continuation of abuse. Detective Wright stands next to a large screen. On the screen, she projects the data. Spreadsheets become images. Images become evidence. 14 complaints over 6 years, she says, her voice steady and professional. 63 stops. 89% of those stops involve Black or Latina women. The numbers scroll. The names scroll. The dates scroll. Every single documented incident becomes visible. To the council, to the media, to the citizens watching online. Now the question becomes, why Wright continues? Why these neighborhoods? Why these demographics? Why these outcomes? The answer is in the documentation. She projects the memo. Line by line, she reads it aloud. Quota expectations. Minimum 6 stops per week. Minimum 2 tows per month. This is not ambiguous. This is not open to interpretation. This is a directive to engage in specific enforcement targeting. This is direction to create stops, not respond to crime. The council members lean forward. Some of them are hearing this for the first time. Some of them suspected but didn't have confirmation. All of them are now confronted with evidence that's irrefutable. Wright projects the financial records. Metro Towing, a private company that benefits directly from these stops, has paid officers directly. $52,000 to Officer Brooks, $31,000 to Officer Martinez. This is not a coincidence. This is a quid pro quo arrangement. Create stops, receive money. Direct enforcement towards specific neighborhoods, receive compensation. She projects the text messages. Soccer moms don't lawyer up. This demonstrates intent. This demonstrates knowledge that the targeting is deliberate, and that the victims are being chosen specifically because of perceived vulnerability. When Wright finishes, the evidence is laid bare. There is no room for doubt. There is no room for ambiguity. There is only the clear demonstration that the system has been designed from the top to target specific people in specific neighborhoods. Councilmember Taylor calls Renee to the stand. Renee walks to the front of the chamber. She sits in the designated seat. She raises her hand and is sworn in. Ms. Caldwell. Taylor says, "Can you describe for the council what happened on the day of your stop?" Renee takes a breath. She has rehearsed this. She has practiced in front of a mirror. She has prepared herself for the cameras, for the microphones, for the public nature of what she's about to say. But no amount of preparation makes it easy. "I was driving on Elm Street," she begins. "I was heading to pick up my daughter from school. I adjusted my radio dial. My car drifted slightly. It was less than a second. And then I saw the lights behind me." She describes the approach. She describes Brooks's aggressive demeanor. She describes the demand for documents without explanation. She describes the escalation of the stop, the unnecessary search, the backup that was called. "When I asked why I was being stopped, Officer Brooks didn't answer," she says. "When I asked if he had probable cause to search the vehicle, he told me it was for officer safety, and proceeded anyway. When I objected, he called it difficult and implied that resistance would make things worse." She describes standing outside the vehicle. She describes the public humiliation. She describes Jada in the back seat. "My daughter asked why the officer was angry at me," Renee says. And for the first time, her voice cracks slightly. "I didn't have an answer, because the officer wasn't there for my safety. He wasn't there for anyone's safety. He was there to assert power. He was there because he had the authority to do it, and believed he wouldn't face consequences." Renee pauses. She looks directly at Councilmember Taylor. "I'm an accountant," she says. "I work with data, and the data says I was targeted for my skin color. But data doesn't show my daughter crying. Data doesn't show her learning at 8 years old. That following the rules doesn't matter. Data doesn't show her asking me if she's safe. Data doesn't show me teaching her that the institutions we're supposed to trust might not deserve that trust." She takes a breath. "I would have accepted a warning. I would have accepted a citation if I had actually violated the law. But what I received was harassment. What I received was an assertion of power by someone who believed he could treat me however he wanted because of the uniform he wore, and the only reason anything is being done about it is because my husband has a position of authority, because my husband can access the records, because my husband has the power to push back." She looks at the other council members. The woman sitting behind me is Marissa Williams. She's a teacher. She was asked to recite the alphabet backwards. to prove she wasn't intoxicated, despite no indication of impairment. The woman next to her is LaToya Johnson. She missed her son's birthday because she was detained for 3 hours for a violation Officer Brooks never fully explained. These women have nothing except their own word and their own documentation. And if my husband wasn't in the position he's in, if I didn't have access to him, they would still be waiting for someone to listen. Renee sits back. Taylor nods. She understands the significance of what Renee has just said. Then she calls the other victims. Marissa Williams approaches. She's nervous. She's been practicing her testimony. But the cameras, the council members, the weight of it all is more than she expected. "I'm a third-grade teacher," she says. "I teach children to respect authority, to believe in institutions, to trust that if you follow the rules, you'll be protected." And then I was stopped by Officer Brooks. I was driving home from work. I hadn't done anything wrong, but he stopped me. He searched my vehicle. He made me stand outside for an hour while he cited me, and he made me prove I wasn't intoxicated by reciting the alphabet backwards. She holds up a piece of paper. I was completely sober. My blood alcohol content was 0%, but I still had to perform sobriety tests at the side of the road while neighbors watched. And then I had to explain to my students why their teacher, who tells them to respect police officers, was treated that way. LaToya Johnson stands next. She's holding a calendar. She points to May 15th. "This was my son's birthday," she says. "He was turning 7. We had a party planned. Family was coming. And I didn't make it. Officer Brooks stopped me for a broken taillight. I know I had a broken taillight, but he could have written me a citation and let me go. Instead, he detained me. He searched my vehicle. He called backup for 1 woman and 1 broken taillight. I was in that car for 3 hours, and my son's birthday party happened without me." Kendra Anderson approaches with her college diploma, framed and in hand. "I have a master's degree in project management," she says, holding up the diploma. "I work for a major corporation. I've never been in trouble with the law. And Officer Brooks stopped me and made me perform a sobriety test. He asked me to recite the alphabet backwards, not as a formal breath test, not as a field sobriety test, but as some kind of spontaneous demonstration that I wasn't intoxicated. I was stone sober. I passed, and I still received a citation for something that was never proven." The council chambers fill with the voices of 26 women, each with her own story, each with her own moment of violation, each with her own understanding that the system had failed her. Some of the testimonies are detailed, some are brief. All of them are damning. By the time the last woman finishes, the council members are looking at each other with expressions that suggest they finally truly understand what they're being asked to address. Taylor calls on Brooks's attorney. Brooks is notably absent. He hasn't come to defend himself. He sent his lawyer with a prepared statement. The attorney stands. He clears his throat. Officer Brooks regrets any perception of impropriety, the attorney reads. He has served this department for 15 years with distinction. He respectfully requests that the council consider his full record before making any determinations about his employment. Taylor interrupts. His record includes 14 complaints. His record includes 63 stops, concentrated entirely on minority neighborhoods. His record includes 26 victims who have come forward. His record includes text messages in which he refers to women in these neighborhoods as easy pickings because soccer moms don't lawyer up. His record includes financial compensation from the tow company that benefits from his stops. What full record are we supposed to consider? The attorney has no response. Taylor calls for votes on 3 measures. First, termination of Officer Randall Brooks's employment effective immediately. The vote is 7-2. Brooks is fired. 2 council members unwilling to accept that patterns of behavior. once documented, require action vote against it, but the majority holds. Second, suspension of officers Kyle Martinez, Foster Williams, and Daniel Jackson, pending federal investigation. The vote is 9-0, unanimous. Third, adoption of Ordinance 2024-1118, which mandates body cameras for all officers, prohibits quota-based enforcement, establishes a civilian review board with subpoena power, and requires annual bias training. The vote is 8-1. One council member, unable to move beyond his initial skepticism, votes no. But the ordinance passes. Taylor gavels the votes closed. Officer Randall Brooks, she announces, her voice echoing through the chamber. Your employment is terminated effective immediately. The gavel falls. It's over. Outside the council chambers, media swarms. Cameras flash. Reporters call out questions. Renee stands with the other victims, and there's no triumph in any of their expressions, just exhaustion and a kind of careful relief. They won, but they shouldn't have had to fight this hard. Renee steps to a microphone. A reporter asks, "How do you feel about the council's decision?" "I feel relieved," Renee says simply. "Not because my stop was erased, not because the harm has been undone, but because the system for once has chosen to acknowledge what happened and to attempt to address it. That matters. It shouldn't have taken this long. It shouldn't have taken a police chief's wife to be believed. But it matters that it's happening." She pauses. "I'm grateful for the other 25 women who spoke tonight. I'm grateful for the council members who voted to hold the system accountable. And I'm grateful that my daughter Jada got to see that when you speak truth. Sometimes people listen." Over the following weeks, the consequences roll out. Officer Randall Brooks's employment is terminated. Criminal charges are filed. Civil rights violations, conspiracy, kickback fraud. His attorney immediately begins negotiating a plea deal. Brooks will testify against his supervisors. In exchange for reduced charges, Captain Victor Lang, already resigned, becomes the focus of a federal investigation. His pension is suspended pending investigation. His house is searched. His financial records are subpoenaed. The FBI's case against him is at this point airtight. Officers Kyle Martinez and Daniel Jackson are suspended. Martinez, like Brooks, cooperates with federal prosecutors. Jackson fights the charges. But his attorney realizes that the evidence is overwhelming. Within months, both officers will resign, rather than face termination and prosecution. Officer Marcus Chen, the rookie who was uncomfortable with Brooks's tactics, is cleared of any wrongdoing. He becomes a crucial witness for the prosecution, testifying about what he observed and heard during Renee's stop, and others. Metro Towing loses its city contract. Craig Thompson, the owner, faces civil suits from all 26 women. The settlement agreements are structured to be confidential, but the financial impact is substantial enough that the company closes within 18 months. Chief Caldwell Byron's career is strengthened by his decision to investigate. He's treated by reformist circles as a leader willing to confront institutional corruption. By conservative circles, he's treated as a traitor to his own profession. He doesn't particularly care about either assessment. He did what he believed was right. 6 months after the hearing, Renee is at a gas station. Not the same gas station where the original stop might have happened. Different location, different neighborhood. But a similar place. A place where ordinary life happens. Jada is with her in the passenger seat. She's 9 now. She's still processing what happened, still working through the fear that was planted. During that afternoon on Elm Street, a patrol car pulls into the lot. Different officer than Brooks, someone young professional looking. The officer waves friendly and continues driving without incident. Jada watches the car. She's quiet for a moment. "Mommy," she says finally. "Was that okay?" Renee's hands tighten on the steering wheel. She could lie. She could say, yes, everything is fine now. The problem has been solved. You can trust authority again. She could try to undo the lessons that her daughter learned in the preceding 6 months. But Jada is 9 years old. She's already too wise for that kind of lie. It was a police officer doing his job the right way, Renee says. That's good. But that doesn't mean we can stop watching. Is it safe now? Jada asks. Renee pauses. The answer is complicated. The answer involves acknowledging that her daughter, in asking this question, has already learned something important about how the world works. It's safer, Renee says finally. We made it safer. The body cameras are mandatory now. The council is watching. The police union has less power to protect officers who abuse their authority. But we have to keep watching. We have to hold them accountable. That's our responsibility. Jada nods. She understands in the way that children do, when they've been forced to grow up faster than they should. That safety is not a permanent condition, that it has to be built, that it has to be maintained. Will you keep helping, Jada asks. Yes, Renee says. We'll keep helping. Officer Randall Brooks was one officer, but he wasn't unique. He was a product of systems of policies, of an institution that had created space for his behavior and protected him when it was revealed. The body cameras and the Civilian Review Board, and the quota prohibition. These are structural changes that make that behavior harder to hide, harder to justify, harder to continue. But they're not a cure. They're a treatment. They're an acknowledgement that the disease exists, and they're a step toward managing it. The 26 women who testified, who came forward, who refused to accept that their experiences were isolated incidents. They were the ones who made the difference, not because they were uniquely important or uniquely victimized, but because they were willing to be public about what happened to them, because they were willing to be names and faces and voices, rather than statistics. Ordinance 2024-1118 becomes law. Body cameras are mandatory. Footage is released within 72 hours. Quotas are explicitly prohibited. The Civilian Review Board begins to function. Annual bias training is implemented. No single ordinance solves the problem of authority abused, but each ordinance makes it incrementally harder to abuse authority invisibly. Each ordinance shifts the power balance slightly toward transparency. Each ordinance suggests to the next officer who might be tempted that there are now consequences. This story is not about one bad officer being fired. That's the easy narrative, the one that lets us believe in individual redemption and institutional self-correction. This story is about a system designed to protect abusers. This story is about a system that creates rules and then exempts those in uniform from following them. This story is about an institution that only changes when it's forced to change. By public pressure, by evidence, by voices that refuse to be silenced. The gas station is still there. Police still patrol those neighborhoods. But now cameras are rolling, and people are watching. That makes all the difference. If this story meant something to you, if it connected with something you know about how authority is sometimes abused, then share it. Not for clicks, because patterns only change. When people refuse to look away, your voice matters. Your refusal to accept injustice matters. Your willingness to hold authority accountable matters. Subscribe to our channel for more stories about courage, about justice, about people who refuse to accept that the system was designed to protect anyone except themselves.